So I ended up giving this book a 4-star read. No. Hi, welcome back. It's Kay. So this is going to be my August wrap up and my September TBR. Actually, before we do that, I wanted to apologize. I know I didn't post a video last week because I ended up getting sick and I was just way too sick to film, edit, and post a video. But moving on from there, first for my August wrap up, I probably should have counted this ahead of time. I read 10 books this month. Let's go ahead and jump right on into it. The first book that I read this month was Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare. This is the first book in the Infernal Devices trilogy. It was very good. I really enjoyed it. I ended up giving it a 3-star rating. That was just because it seems very similar to Mortal Instruments, but more like eloquently written. So Clockwork Angel is about a girl named Tessa who moves to London to be with her brother, and when she gets there, she is kidnapped by 2 warlocks, and it is through that she discovers she is not mundane. She doesn't find out quite who she is until towards the end of the book, and so I'm not going to spoil that for you, but it is a really good book, and it takes you through her being rescued and then having to go to the Institute in London and surviving with the shadow hunters and trying to save her brother through all of that while being hunted by the Magister, who is an unknown figure at this time. So it's a really good book, but it just doesn't seem like you could replace the names in that for the names in the Mortal Instrument series from the first book, and it's the same thing, you know? I gave it a 3-star because while it was written better, it did seem like the same story, and I mean, if I'm gonna read the same thing again by the same author, it's not gonna, it doesn't, in my opinion, deserve more than a 3-star read, because at that point I can get it somewhere else. But so that was how I rated this book. It was really good. I did enjoy it, and I did continue with the series, but before I started the second book in that series, I actually read Happy Place by Emily Henry. That book was really good. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I really liked the love story in this one. I've never actually read a second chance romance before, which is weird because romance is my go-to genre, but it was my first second chance romance, and I really liked the way that it was done. I'll have to read more to see if I like continuing in that, but I was almost immediately connected with the heroine. I just really could relate to her, which is funny because I read another Emily Henry book that we'll talk about in a little bit, and for that one, it was like I was reading about myself. It was absolutely insane. But for the heroine of this one, Harriet, she was very impressionable, and I really enjoyed her character. I liked the way that she thought about things. It was similar to the way that I think about things, so that was cool. And I really liked, honestly, the romance in this kind of took a back seat in my mind compared to the friendships that were expanded upon in this. So if you don't know, Happy Places by Emily Henry is about a girl named Harriet who is going on a summer trip with her longtime friends from college, and she gets there, and she was going to keep it a secret that she was separated from her fiance and that they were no longer together. And so her fiance wasn't coming on the trip, but her fiance ends up coming on the trip anyways because of reasons that I don't think are on the back of the book. She ends up having to share a room with him, and so it's forced proximity, second chance. It's a good time. But I really liked reading about the friendships that there were 6 of them, that the 6 of them had together. It was very unique, and it allowed you to see exactly how friendships in college worked and how they have to evolve when you leave college and go out and do your own thing. That's something I'm currently having to face. I moved across the country to go to grad school. 2 of my friends are still in San Diego. One of my friends lives in San Francisco. People are all over the place, and just having to manage to keep those connections is not always the easiest thing, and getting to see that and how the connections have struggled and changed and evolved in this book was really interesting to me. I enjoyed it. And then of course there were character flaws in all of the characters. And so it was cool to see how flaws can play out in those friendships. And that's really my main takeaway from that book, was that like people change, life changes, things are always different. And when that happens, you just need to roll with it. And if you do, like, things will be okay. The third book that I read this month, Clockwork Prince by Cassandra Clare. This is the second book in the Infernal Devices trilogy. And this book was slightly better than the first book. I ended up giving this book 4 stars as opposed to the 3 that the first one got. For this book, I really enjoyed, I'm going to be honest, I enjoyed Will Herondale. That's what I enjoyed in this. So this book just continues on the story of Clockwork Angel. So this just continues that story along. On this, you've learned who the Magister is, and now relationships are developing, people are being betrayed, that sort of thing. And so in this book, I just wanted Will Herondale to be happy. That's what I wanted in my heart and soul. And that's just, we've read Cassandra Clare. She does angst well. So yeah. But so this just continues that story, ups the ante a little bit. Things get a little more exciting and entertaining. But I read these almost exclusively for the romance. By the time I got to this one, I didn't really care about the story anymore, and I was like, give me the romance. If you want more detailed explanation about these books, I did make a video exclusively on this trilogy. I'll put it up above, so if you want to click on that card, you can go ahead and watch that video, okay? The fourth book that I read, once again, was an ebook. It's right here. Oh, actually, I'm a liar. I bought a physical copy. The fourth book that I read was Book Lovers by Emily Henry. So, Book Lovers. I was absolutely obsessed with this book. I read it so fast. It was like the only thing that I could talk about for about 2 days. It was everything I wanted in a book about books and more. So this book is about a girl named Nora Stevens, who is a literary agent. And basically, she ends up going on vacation with her sister over the summer. And it's this whole big thing that she is going to spend the summer with her sister. It's like their last summer together for where they can just relax, because her sister's like pregnant and wants to like have one last, yay, it's me and you being together type of thing, which is really cute. So they go to this small town that has been really hyped up by one of the authors that Nora actually is the agent of. And they get to this small town. It's not at all what they thought it would be. When she gets there, Charlie is there as well. And Charlie is her like rival almost. Basically, they had like one bad encounter. He's an editor, and he didn't want to edit the book that hyped up this town so much. And she wasn't sure why, but he was not the most positive about the book. And she like goes to town for her authors. Like, she's a ride or die type of agent, which is awesome. And so because of that, they didn't really get along, because he shot down her author's book really quickly. And she was like, well, we don't like each other. And so they didn't talk for like 2 years after that. And then she goes to this town with her sister, and oh my gosh, Charlie's there. So it's basically just a romance about them working near each other and having to exist in the same town. And they end up talking, and lo and behold, romance ensues. So it's a really good time. I definitely enjoyed it a lot, and it was a great rivals to friends to lovers book. I don't know, it just made me happy. It was very interesting because I really connected with Nora a lot, because she's always happy to like give up part of herself, or like something that she really wants, a goal of hers, for the people around her, for her mainly for her sister really, but for her sister and her family. Like, she would give up everything for them. And it's just so, I don't know, it's so touching. It really reminds me of myself. Yeah, it was a good book, okay? Also, okay, the banter in this book, the wit, the flirting, it was just page turning, genuinely page turning, because they just had so much chemistry between them. It was good. It was so good. I had a great time from start to finish. I could not put this book down. And I was laughing out loud. I was having a great time. So I would recommend this book so much. This was a 5-star read for me, which does not happen often. So we'll take it. The 5th book that I read was The Clockwork Princess by Cassandra Clare. Oh, funny. I didn't even realize we had 2 5-star reads this month. This book was a 5-star read for me. I absolutely loved this book. It was so good. I really just liked the romances in it, and the way that you were like kept wondering about what was going to happen, and the excitement and intrigue. So if you don't know, The Clockwork Princess just continues the trilogy of the Infernal Devices by Cassandra Clare. This is the last one, and in this one, things have really amped up. We know who the Magister is, like I said from the last book, and now he's up in the ante. We know all of the players in the game. We don't know why he wants Tessa still. Book 3, still have no idea, but he will do anything to get her, and he does. So the stuff that happens in this book that happens, sorry, I'm trying not to spoil it, and it's hard to not spoil a trilogy. Like when you're talking about the 3rd book of a trilogy, what can you really say? Yeah, so I can't really say anything about what's on the book because the stuff on the back of the book does spoil stuff for the other 2 books, so I'm not going to say that. What I will say, romance continued to be the driving force for me in this trilogy. Oh my God, like I just want Will to be happy, and I want him to be happy with Tessa because that's what will make him happy, in my humble opinion. And so I'm just rooting for them. You know, we love what's the word I'm looking for? A love triangle. We love a love triangle, and we love a love triangle where everyone is friends because that makes it so much more intriguing, I guess you could say. Because you don't want anyone to get hurt, but you know, you're team so-and-so. I was team Will. Well, we'll always be team Will. But that's all I'm really going to say about this one because I don't want to spoil anything. If you want to see both spoilers and non-spoiler explanations of these books in more detail, again, that video is going to be up here, so you can go ahead and give that a look, okay? The 6th book that I read was One Italian Summer by Rebecca Soule. This book, I hated this book. I hated it so much. I thought that it was going to be good. There was a video when I did my book haul, and in it I talk about how I really had high hopes for this book and high expectations because it sounded like such an interesting premise, and then it really disappointed me. This is going to be no spoiler, so I'm just going to say that. So I don't like cheating in books sometimes. Sometimes I'm fine with it. Like if it's a situation where the boyfriend is a scumbag or something and he like cheated on her and treats her terribly, and then she like doesn't leave him because trauma, and then she finds someone and gets with them and then breaks up with him, I don't care. Not my business. Cheating when it's I'm just gonna cheat on you and then never tell you, and the person I cheat with is not the like hero of the novel, I'm good. I wasn't rooting for Katie in this book at all because as soon as she started going down that path, I was like, oh, maybe before I do that, I should probably tell you what this book is about. So this book is about a girl named Katie who goes to Italy after her mom dies. She was supposed to go with her mom, but her mom passed away. And so she goes without her mom, and when she's there, she runs into her mom, but at her age. And so then she gets to spend this 2-week trip with her mom in Italy, and it's still like a very exciting thing. And she does leave her husband behind when she does this. Her husband's back in, I think they live in LA, and so she's going with just herself and then runs into her mom, and summer ensues. So she gets there, and when she gets there, she does meet a man very early, probably chapter 2, so I'm not spoiling anything here. And as soon as she met this man, I was like, oh, so like maybe she's like gonna get a divorce or something, and like this man is the hero. But like this isn't a love story at the end of the day, so what it's focusing on is not the romance. And so there isn't really like a hero of the story in the typical sense of a romance, meaning that she just like spends the summer with this guy and like contemplates cheating multiple times, and then at the end of the book, goes home to her husband after things happen in Italy. And that's just not, like, I'm not rooting for that. That's just like I don't condone cheating in the actual sense. And so reading about actual cheating was not a good time. So this book was terrible. I think I gave it 2 stars, and only because at the end of the day, like, I've been to Positano, which is where in Italy this takes place, and she nailed it. Like, I felt like I was there again. So I'll give her that. Her writing is really good. But because I couldn't condone like the actual story itself, and there were other issues that I had with the story, like the fact that Katie essentially exists for her mom in this book. Like, her mom dies and she like literally says that her mom was like the love of her life and she can't like survive without her. And that's like first chapter, not a big deal. But that's just like throughout the whole book, that's all that she's like thinking. And it's just not believable. Like, I can't imagine someone being so like conceited as to think that they are the love of their mom's life and their mom is the love of their life, and that nobody else in the world could ever compare, and like having a husband just isn't the same, and that she believes that her dad was her mom's second love and that she was her mom's first love. And it's just so selfish. It wasn't good to read about it. And so yeah, at the end of the day, it was a 2-star read. The 7th book that I read this month was Things You Save in a Fire by Catherine Center. This book was so good. I ended up giving this book a 4-star rating. So it would have been a 5-star, but I really didn't like the overall push for like forgiveness that this book seems to have. Sometimes I felt like this book was pushing the message of forgiveness a little too heavy, and it wasn't even doing it for the sense of you'll be better for it. And I just wasn't a big fan of that. Sometimes forgiveness makes sense, and sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes it's never going to happen. And this really laid on the like forgiveness is important, and it just felt like it was trying to like guilt me into forgiving people for things that have happened in my life, and I'm not about that. Moving on from that, this romance, amazing. Oh my god, I loved it. This is about Cassie, who moves from Austin. She was in a firehouse that was very like pro current time, you know, like women can be firefighters, everything's good. And she moves from there to a small firehouse right outside of Boston. And this firehouse, not the case. Very old school, all men, all old. Women can't be firefighters. They should be home cooking. They shouldn't work, that type of thing. And so she has to like battle with this, proving that she's good enough and that she deserves to be there to the people that she works with, which she does. She's an amazing firefighter. So it was just really interesting to read about her work life, but then also the whole thing is that she starts work with a rookie named, what is his name? You don't learn his name until like halfway through the book, so I don't want to spoil that because I mean it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, but it's not on the back of the book and you don't learn until halfway through. So the rookie, she ends up being really attracted to the rookie, and a big no-no about women trying to make way into very oppressive firehouses is like, yo, basically don't be a chick. That's like the moral of the story. Don't ever be naked in front of them. Like, don't have a crush. Don't show emotion. Always have your hair pulled back. Never wear it down. It's so serious, the message that they're pushing. Don't be a chick. And so then in walks this rookie, and she's like, oh my god, he's beautiful. And well, that's not good. Except it's so good to read. This book is fantastic. I loved it. If it wasn't for that forgiveness thing, it would be a 5-star read. It would have been great if we had 3. That's a 2. If we had 3 5-star reads in this month, it would have been amazing. Sadly, it's 4. But it's so good, and I would recommend it. Please pick it up. Oh my gosh. If you get nothing else from this video, pick up this book. I'm sorry, I just realized I am a liar. I only read 9 books this month, not 10. Number 8 is The Summer House. Sorry, there's a picture shoved in there. Dylan's reading it right now too, so he bookmarked where he is. So this book is fine. It's a little boring. It's kind of slow, so I wasn't like a huge fan of it. So this book is about a girl named Lily who wakes up one morning to divorce papers on her table and her husband is gone. And so she's scrambling because she was a stay-at-home wife and her husband left, and so she doesn't have any like means to live. She has some savings, but that's it really. And so she ends up finding a job as a hairdresser because before she met her husband, she was a hairdresser. And then she has to go through life. She meets this man who is the nephew of her boss, actually, Rollins. And Rollins is a shrimper and a single dad. And that's honestly the main reason why I picked this up, because the single dad thing, I love the protective father. It's just so good. The kid isn't a super big part of the book, and so that was upsetting. It was fine. Like, it was a decent romance. It was just a little boring. This ended up being a 3-star read because it was pretty average. The 9th book and the final book that I read this month was Educated by Tara Westover, which is a memoir about a woman who grew up with survivalist parents and didn't go to school until she ended up going to college, which she did because she homeschooled, studied, took like the ACTs, applied, and got into BYU. And then she went to school, and how basically just like her whole life story. And it was really good. I really enjoyed the entire story. It was interesting to like read about what growing up in that environment is like, because I learned about how they never, for all of the injuries that they had, they didn't go to doctors or anything. It was just very interesting because I've never met someone like that. And so reading about it was really cool. My mom was pro doctor. We went all the time for everything. Ever had any issues, she was like, cool, we're going to the doctor, you know? And so it was interesting to see that not be the case. Like, there were multiple times where they were in car accidents, people had like concussions and serious brain injuries, and people had broken limbs and 3rd-degree burns, and they didn't go to hospitals and just dealt with it as a family. And it was just really interesting to read. She was also raised super Mormon. It's not a perspective I've ever seen before, so I was intrigued by it. And so because of that, I gave it a 4.25 rating on Storygraph. There is a lot of controversy about if this story is accurate, if she was lying, that sort of thing. I personally feel like it's not my place to judge if somebody's life story is real or not, because I didn't live it. I don't know. I'm going to take the book for the truth until proven otherwise. Let's move on to the TBR. The first book on my TBR, The Book Eaters by Sunny Dean. Please don't kill me. This book. My husband and I are starting a book club. We're gonna film it and put it on here because, as I said before, Chandler Ainsley is like my favorite booktuber of like all time. And she does a book club with her husband. It's called the DBBC, the Dumb Bitch Book Club. And so they read about dumb bitches is like the whole thing for them. And her husband is already a reader, and they're reading like dumb bitches together because it's fun, right? Well, my husband, not a reader. So I thought, instead of doing something like that, my husband and I could have a book club where I'm just basically trying to find books that he likes. And so we're finding books that he enjoys. We're trying to find him 5-star reads. And so we're going to do that in a book club. And it's going to be on here. We're still thinking of a name. So when that video comes, you'll learn it. Okay? But so we're reading Book Eaters. This is about a family who live in Yorkshire moors, and they actually survive off of books. Like, they eat books for sustenance, which is really cool. And then they retain like the stories, which is so fascinating. It sounded like such an intriguing book. But then there is this, and so then there's a boy that is born to I think the main character of the book. I haven't started it yet. Dylan's reading it first. Devin, and the boy is born craving to eat not books, but the human mind. I'm just so excited for it. I hope that he likes it. I'm excited to talk about it with him. I'm excited to read it. And he's reading it first because I read in like a day, and he will read this for he's been reading it for like a week now. But it just sounds so good, and I'm excited, and I hope that it's a good book. The second book of the month I want to read is probably not in this order because I actually have to have this read by the 3rd. So I've got like 3 days. But this is Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas. This was on my TBR from last month. I did not get to it. I already talked about what this is about, but I'll say it briefly again. This is about a girl who has a boyfriend that sucks. and they end up having to move in with his dad, and then they break up, but she stays with the dad because the dad is a nice person, and then she ends up falling in love with him. And that's, yeah. I don't really want to say much more than that because I feel like that was a good place to leave someone with some intrigue. I love this book. It's fantastic. I've already read it. I'm going to read it again and I'm going to love it. Pike is the dad's name and Jordan is the woman's name, and Pike cares about her even before they're in a relationship and before he sees her in not like a you're dating my son kind of way. Like, he cares about her, and genuinely nice people are so much fun to read about. And then when things get spicy from with a genuinely nice person, always a good time. So this book, it's like basic. I think it's a 5-star read. I don't think I've ever rated it, if I'm being honest. So I'm gonna tentatively say 5-star read, but I'll give you a for sure in my wrap up next month. But yeah, so Birthday Goal by Penelope Douglas. Would recommend you pick it up. The next book that I have is The Institute by Stephen King. So this book is about a place called The Institute, and basically they kidnap children in the middle of the night. They will murder their parents and kidnap them, and then they'll wake up in what looks like to be their exact bedroom, except there are no windows, and outside of the door is just a hallway of doors with more children. And this is called the front half. All of these children have gifts, and basically they're expected to serve in some way. If you do not serve, then you are taken to the back half, and in the back half you never come back. It's a very intriguing story. It seems like nobody ever gets to escape this place. It'll be exciting to see how the main character, Luke, deals with being kidnapped, being in this place, and if he escapes. The last book, I'm keeping my TBR short this month just because I am starting school on the 5th, and I don't know how much reading I'm going to get to. But the 4th book that I want to read is Atomic Habits by James Clear. So Atomic Habits is about this idea, basically, that the way to improve your life and get better at doing habits and doing all things in life, really, is that you need to make a 1% change in the positive direction every, day or whatever, so you basically break your goals down into 1% changes. The whole thing is that if you do all of the change at once, it's not going to stick, but if you do it 1% at a time, next thing you know, you've done it, you've made that change, you've accomplished that goal. And so it's really easy to fall back from a big change, but when you're doing a 1% change, that could be the difference in I wake up and make my bed every day. Like, that's a 1% change. Instead of waking up and not making my bed, I take 2 minutes to make it and then I go about my day, right? As opposed to I wake up and I clean my whole house, Like, the goal is that I want to be a more organized person and have everything in its place and clean. But to do that, I shouldn't just wake up one day and clean everything, because I'm not going to do that every day. That's not realistic. So this sort of breaks down the way that you can build your habits up. And so I've heard a lot of good things about this book. I want to give it a read. I hope that it's good. But so that's all that I have for my TBR. I hope that you enjoyed this video. You should tell me what your favorite read of this past month was down in the comments below, I hope somebody else had a 5-star read. I'd love to hear about it. Maybe I'll like it. Maybe I'll pick it up. So drop that down in the comments down below. Give this video a like if you liked it, and subscribe, I always feel so awkward saying that. But y'all have a nice day. Bye.